I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. So Donald Trump is trying to go judge shopping in connection with Tish James's $250 million fraud lawsuit brought against Donald Trump and his adult children and Alan Weisselberg and the Trump Organization. Tish James, the New York AG's lawsuit, would also ban Donald Trump and his adult children from holding like director or manager roles in companies that do business in New York. It would also ban them from owning or buying commercial property in New York for a period of 5 years. It would basically be the civil death penalty and put the Trump Organization out of business if they're successful. But Trump's trying to go judge shopping. He does not like the judge who the special proceeding was administered by. So remember, before the civil lawsuit by Tish James was filed about 2 weeks ago, for a number of years, there was the special proceeding, which Tish James invoked under special regulations that allows the New York AG to have these proceedings. And that case was assigned to Justice Arthur Engoron. And Justice Arthur Engoron is a trial judge. He sits on the Manhattan Supreme Court. New York's a little quirky. The Supreme Court's their trial court, their lower court. And the highest court, which you would normally think is the Supreme Court, is the Court of Appeals. But I digress. In any event, Justice Arthur Engoron was overseeing that special proceeding. And what happened in that special proceeding? Donald Trump was held in contempt for not participating in discovery and obstructing discovery. Alina Habba represented him in those proceedings, and Trump was fined over $100,000. And Donald Trump and Eric Trump and Weisselberg were deposed in that special proceeding. And what did they do? When they were asked about potential fraudulent valuations and why did you report this valuation to that entity and a conflicting valuation to the other entity, what did Trump and Eric and Weisselberg do? I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. The implication of that in a civil case, unlike a criminal case, is that by invoking the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, it's an adverse inference. So Tish James can point to that deposition and say, Judge, jury, the reason they pled the fifth is because if they answered it, they'd be admitting to the liability. You should adversely infer against their interests that they were trying to hide something by invoking the Fifth Amendment. Anyway, Justice Arthur Engoron has a lot of institutional knowledge from overseeing this case and the special proceedings, so that when Tish James brought the $250 million fraud lawsuit, she filed what's called a notice of related cases and said Justice Arthur Engoron should be overseeing this case just like he oversaw the special proceeding. In response, Alina Habba, Donald Trump's lawyer, filed a letter with the administrator of the New York court system and basically said, no, we don't want Justice Arthur Engoron. This case should be transferred to the complex commercial division. This case is a complex commercial case. Send it to another court. About an hour after Alina Habba sent that letter, the case was assigned to Justice Arthur Engoron. It could still potentially be challenged. And so a few days after Alina Habba wrote her letter, at the end of last week, Tish James wrote a letter, and Tish James said, look, we hear you in the sense that this case technically could be defined as a complex commercial case, but New York law is very clear here, which is just because a case is defined as a complex commercial case doesn't mean you would divest a judge like Arthur Engoron of a case where there's a related case, and the interests of justice and judicial economy would make the related case the right decision. And Tish James's letter, New York AG Tish James' letter says, of course the judicial economy here favors Justice Arthur Engoron. He oversaw the other case. Why would we assign this to a case where a new judge is going to have to spend years to just become familiar with this case, or if not years, just a substantial time? And She writes in the letter, Donald Trump and his adult children are engaged in an active and ongoing fraud, and we want to bring this case to trial soon, by 2023. And all Donald Trump is trying to do by transfer this case to the commercial complex division is delay this thing for 5 years or a decade and try to slow this down. But we're very familiar with the issues. Justice Arthur Engoron is very familiar with the issues. This case should stay before Justice Arthur Engoron. And what she says in the letter as well, she says, once the moving defendant's application, Trump's, has been denied, OAG, the Office of Attorney General, intends to seek an expedited preliminary conference to set a trial date before the end of 2023, allowing for an expedited trial schedule on an enforcement proceeding after extensive litigation over subpoena enforcement is precisely the circumstance that warrants keeping this case before Justice Engoron in the interests of judicial economy. What do I think is going to happen? The case is going to stay with Justice Engoron. I think that there will be an expedited trial date in 2023 for the reasons that Trump is engaged in an ongoing fraud and that these issues have already been briefed, and Donald Trump has already pled the fifth, and all the key witnesses have pled the fifth. So what other depositions are even needed? And Trump's play, like it is in all of the cases, is delay, 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 and I don't believe that's going to be countenanced here in New York. But we will keep you posted, of course, of all of those developments here on the MeidasTouch Network. We're on our way to 1 million subs. Make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. Hit the subscribe button if you want to support this independent media network. The other way to support us, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. I always get asked, how can I help out? That's what I get asked by people who watch this. We want to help out grow this network. We're not funded by any outside investors. So if you want to help out, what you can do is go to patreon.com, join one of the membership tiers. We don't have any outside investors, so that's the best way you could help fund and grow this. Get one of the exclusive benefits, or lots of the exclusive benefits, but help grow this channel most importantly. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Until next time.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.